Hi there. Today is Careers Q&A Day, where Zoe and I give you some personal attention.
Today's question really speaks to our hearts and comes in from Sian, a senior manager in a growing organisation. And Sian asks us, should I support my employees' side hustle? It's such a modern leadership question because side hustles aren't unusual anymore. They're creative projects, coaching practices, property ventures, online shops, even AI tools built at the weekend using platforms like OpenAI. And managers often feel unsure. Is this divided loyalty? Is it a risk? Or actually something to encourage? Let's unpack it.
Yes, and of course, first context, let's just face this head on. The world of work has shifted dramatically and careers are no longer one-dimensional for many people. They've changed, they've continued to change at tremendous pace. And this kind of portfolio working, even, having more than one full-time job is not unknown. But in this context, Sian's talking about something extra, something discretionary that a team member is made her aware of. And that might be necessary. It might be in your contracts that permission needs to be sought for additional work. So she is asking, where is my position around this? And people don't just build one professional identity anymore. They do experiment, they create, they build new skills and income streams on the side. Everything from Etsy, Substacks, YouTube, tools powered by OpenAI, building apps, influencers. And, there's a huge amount also of just free skills education online where a fun hobby might easily turn into something that you're able to monetize. So the real question isn't really should people have side hustles? It's more like, what kind of culture do I want to create around ambition, creativity, and growth that might happen outside of this business as well as inside of it. And if your instinct is to shut it down, then that tells you something. And if your instinct is to ignore it, then that also tells you something. But maybe there is a more comfortable and constructive way through. How might that work?
Yeah, I think we'd say to start with is to have the mindset of support. But more than that, we would encourage you to start from a place of curiosity rather than control. So to really get curious about it, why is it fulfilling them? What does it mean to them? And how could you support it? And what might healthy boundaries look like around it so that they can have the kind of best of both worlds to a certain extent? And I think there's some kind of three things to think about around this. And that is to get curious about what it means to them. So before jumping to risks that, get into a conversation about, what does this give you that perhaps you don't get from your work here? What you're looking for there is it about them having sort of creative expression? Is it that they want to develop new skills? Is it that they're solving tricky problems somewhere else, or they want more autonomy? Or is it just about extra money, the test for something new? So what we want to do is the understanding, the reasoning sort of behind it, if you like. And often I think side hustles do fulfill a sort of psychological need around creativity, meaning and fulfillment, purpose. It's not always just about financial. And I think we should be careful about not assuming that. And understanding all of this tells you far more than just starting from a place of, is this allowed and should I be allowing this? It will open up a much richer conversation and they will feel heard in their desire to explore this sort of side hustle. What about number 2, Erica?
Well, I was just going to say, in a recent episode that we did with Steve Jaffa, he was talking about not supporting someone's side hustle and in retrospect, thinking more creatively about how he could have said yes and what it might have meant for her if he had. So I think it's also really important to recognize the quality of the relationship and how that may be enhanced or impaired by, if someone has come to you and said, I'm doing this thing on the side, it's not going to compromise the work that I'm doing. Here's how I'm navigating it. That if that's sort of shut down, how that might turn out for everybody in the long term. So my second point is to kind of look for the overlap, look for the opportunity. So instead of seeing it as a competition for this person's focus, potentially explore what skills are they building through doing that? What confidence might they be gaining? And what kind of networks potentially are they expanding? What are they learning as they go along? And there's often crossover. There is often a seed and a benefit for you, whether it's gaining commercial awareness, getting better at marketing, learning skills around leadership or budgets or risk taking or negotiation. I mean, if they came to you and said that they were volunteering in that context, you would be unlikely to have as much resistance, right? It's interesting, isn't it? That like you'd be excited about the skills they were developing and you'd want to endorse that. So sometimes the real insight is this: if they're building energy somewhere else, what of that energy might they want more of here? And is there something in there that might be useful for giving them a stretch project or a kind of more responsibility within your context? I think the other thing to say about this is someone approached me recently with exactly this question. They're working full time. They've been offered a freelance opportunity that happens on evenings and weekends that speaks to something that they absolutely love around literary work. And it's in their contract with their organization that they need to tell them that they're going to be doing this. And she's quite anxious. And I'm like, but what, this is a completely separate aspect of your personality that's being served by this. And it adds a lot of value in terms of transferable skills that support the work that you're doing in the day to day. So really try to be open, to be curious, and to just notice how your anxiety is heightened because there's money involved. And actually, if that person were giving their time freely, there would be a little less anxiety going on.
And I guess that leads nicely to our third point, which is about agreeing healthy boundaries together. So when we say support, it doesn't mean open-ended freedom. It means having a really adult conversation and an open dialogue about time and energy and any conflicts of interest that might be there or any competing clients and use of resources that they might need or you might be willing for them to use from the business and, how you can sort of support that. So framing that really again from a collaborative mindset, I think, around like what would help you manage both well. How can we help? We're like, what does balance look like for them? What does it look like for you? So that you have this open, healthy dialogue from the get-go where you're co-creating how this is going to work from both sides. And that way, I think you begin to build more trust around the whole conversation. And then you begin to worry less about the sort of anxiety of what's really going on because you've had an honest discussion about it. I think where organizations can sometimes go wrong is assuming that side hustle equals disloyalty or making people feel like they're going to have to hide it because there's no way you're going to react well to the conversation or only reacting to them when it becomes successful. Like it might be something that they've been working on for years and you've never really paid any attention. And then all of a sudden you're interested. So what you don't want is to turn this conversation into some kind of policy issue. So like we would really encourage to engage in the dialogue and support this entrepreneurial spirit, because as you said, Erica, it's an incredibly valuable skill set that you no doubt would really value in your own business anyway. So yeah, notice that.
And we're all human. A lot of organizations will say we love entrepreneurialism. We're ourselves an entrepreneurial organization, but then can get quite anxious when they see their people being entrepreneurial outside of their business. Yeah. So just notice the tension. Could there be a value add? And how do we agree boundaries and kind of promises and agreements on both sides about how this is going to be navigated skillfully and fairly in terms of the time and effort they've committed to you and where these things are going to happen outside of that. And how you respond is going to shape the culture. If ambition outside of the business feels like it's threatening and unwelcome, people are going to shrink and they're not going to tell you anymore. If it feels like it's discussable and welcome and exciting, then people stay open to sharing with you. And side hustles are rarely about escaping, at least at the beginning. They're rarely about escaping and a sort of, back route out of your business. They're really about different aspects of a person looking for expression, looking for energy. And some of that energetic return can be financial. It's not always that way, but sometimes it is. That's how you're keeping score about that thing. Whether they're, doing jazz gigs on a Saturday night, or whether they are selling their art, or whether they are producing, great plants to sell at a local garden show. Like these things are all about expressing themselves usually. And leaders who can handle that nuance and feel excited about that tend to build a stronger sense of loyalty within their teams, not weaker. So hang in there, Siân, be curious and be realistic. Like sometimes, yes, of course, like sometimes side hustles will grow into something bigger, but that's not always preventable, whether you knew about it or not. But many remain exactly what they are, which is a kind of creative outlet, a skills builder, a confidence builder, a sort of self-expression play, really. So your role isn't to police people's ambition and their ability to express themselves. Your role is to help to make sure that their ambitions within your organization, stay focused and attentive and high performing, and to explore together and to decide together, how do these two things fit? And what do they want from me? And what do I expect from them? That's a much more modern leadership stance and is probably going to work out better. So wishing all the best with that conversation.
So should you support your employee's side hustle? In most cases, yes. But what we'd say is from a place of curiosity, gain some clarity and have some healthy grown-up boundaries in there. And we hope that's kind of helpful for you. And remember that, when people feel trusted to explore, they're far more likely to bring that energy back into the organization, not quietly sort of take it somewhere else. And I think we both can speak on this from personal experiences because we both got side hustles and have had for many years in terms of different sort of creative paths. And it's paid dividends in the business too, as well as outside for ourselves.
Yeah, and just don't underestimate their capacity. I mean, I think everybody in my team has had quite a professional level of side hustle that maybe they would have loved to turn that into permanent work, but didn't, for the most part, didn't. But I felt like it just really added a lot of colour to the business, the conversations that we had. And I've always run projects outside of my core business as well. It's just kind of how I'm made. I just sort of feel the need quite strongly to do that. But what I notice is that when I'm doing one thing, I am doing one thing. So I don't tend to switch out from, if I am focusing on career equation stuff, I don't then start thinking about my property portfolio or my writing I just don't. I'm just in that. So I think trusting that people will be able to stay focused when they should be, and that they're telling you about that because they both want your support and they want to be transparent about how they're spending additional time that might be revenue generating, is something to be celebrated.
So, Siân, I hope that conversation was valuable for you. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and tell us what happened next. We'd like to kind of hear your side of the story too. Take care, folks.
Bye-bye.